37.
38.
40.
3, 2,
Okay.
1.
Hello and welcome to our episode of Crystal Cast Immigration Podcast. My name is Ross and I'm an immigration lawyer based in Sydney.
My name is Juan and I'm a registered migration agent here in Sydney with Ross.
Good to see you again, Juan. We have quite a bit to talk today about. We've got a bit of news and I actually received finally the FOI statistics that I want to walk you through. And we've got our topic of the week as well.
Yeah, excellent. That graph is actually really interesting. Very excited to speak about that, and you'll be pretty interested in having a look at that.
Definitely. Well, let's get started.
And we would like to thank our sponsors, who are 123 Accounting, Migration Insurance Brokers,
and we also have Strategic Brokers and Oasis Keen. Thank you very much for supporting our podcast. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do this on a weekly basis. Alrighty, Juan, now in our news segment this week, I've actually received a copy of Freedom of Information request that I've lodged about a month ago. What I really wanted to have a look at is to see how many applications were lodged with the Department of Home Affairs, visa applications between 1st of July 2023 and 11th of February this year. But I also wanted to have a look at grant numbers and refusal rates as well. And I think this is quite a good sort of statistic to perhaps have a look to see what the trends are. And I know there's a couple of figures that have jumped up at you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this is a very interesting document. Like you said, Ross, gives us an idea on how the behavior of the department in terms of grants, refusals, and yeah, let's have a look more in details at these numbers. What it shows, not surprisingly, like the visitor visa is on the highest numbers of applications, and obviously the higher numbers of grants and refusals.
Yeah, so we got 1.5 million almost 1.5 million that were lodged between 1st of July to 11th of February, so 8 months. That's quite a high number. In terms of grants for that period, we've got around 1.1 million and refusals just under 300,000. So obviously the lodgement numbers between that period don't necessarily reflect the grants as well, because that also reflects visas that were lodged prior to this period. But if you look at the grants and refusals, you are sitting at around sort of a 20% mark, I would say.
Yeah. It shows that, and it is sort of the same trend with student visas. Again, this doesn't come as a surprise, and we see that the figure is like around 20% as well in the refusal rate.
Yeah. So with visitor visas and student visas, you're sitting at around a 20% refusal rate. I think what's really good to see is that there was around 28,000 or close to 29,000 employer nomination scheme visas granted and just 437 refusals. So definitely really good news, and I can see that skilled independence visas, they're sitting at around sort of the high 20,000 marks, and the refusals are quite low. Very similar to the 190, the skilled nominated, sitting at 13,000 lodged, just a bit more than that, and well, that's a reflection of what's being lodged like in this financial year so far. And very low refusal rate, 305.
Yeah, that's very low. So it's good. It's a good good indication.
Yeah, and also I think what's really good is if you look at the 482 visas, there was around 58,000 that were approved and just 827 that were refused for the same period. So it would appear that in terms of skilled visas, the refusal rate is quite low, which is good. That's what we want, because these visas do cost quite a bit of money to lodge, and the refusal is kept at a bay.
Absolutely. And look, and speaking about these visas, skilled visas, look at the global talent as well. That has a very low refusal rate, just 80.
80, good.
Yeah, very good, because this also is very expensive.
Yeah.
And hard to get, but yeah, absolutely, it's great.
So all in all, the Department of Home Affairs for the period of 1 July 2023 to 11th of February 2024 has granted 1.6 million visas and had refused 367,000 visas. And again, the majority of those refusals sit within the visitor visa and the student visa sector. There is another statistic that I just want to very quickly run through, because I do talk about it in my CPDs, and that is cases on hand. So we are approaching May shortly, and that's when the budget's going to be announced. So what's going to happen is the states will get their allocations, and the allocations are also impacted by how many visas are at hand or are currently lodged. Now, if you have a look at the 190 visas, and it is a little bit of a concern, there's around 38,000 applications lodged in the system. So the way that it works is there's planning levels for the particular visa, and there's also allocations. Now, if you've got such a high number of almost 40,000, it means that the allocations this year will probably be a little bit low as well. So as of June last year, there was around 49,000, and we haven't really moved much. So I think if you're asking that question, whether states will get more allocations in the coming financial year, well, the current statistics indicate that probably a no. We could be wrong, but just based on those predictions, we'll probably again get very low allocations. Now on to topic of the week. Every week we do discuss different topics, whether it's immigration or something that's related. I was just thinking the other day, Juan, because we had quite a few cases or inquiries where well, essentially individuals lodged the application themselves, and I thought it would be a good idea to discuss, well, what is the purpose of using a migration agent or an immigration lawyer to help you with an application? I think it's a topic that comes up quite a bit for me anyway. What's been your experience?
Yeah, people ask that question a lot, and I think it's really important to stress what is actually our job as migration agents or lawyers, because a lot of the time people have misconceptions. People think that what we do is like just fill out forms or draft application and do it, and it seems like it's a simple task that everyone can do by themselves, but there is a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And I think it's good that we're discussing this subject.
100%. Well, look, I've got a couple of questions that I wanted to ask, and I know you got some questions for me. So let's now talk about the common misconceptions or common perceptions of using a migration agent or an immigration lawyer.
Yeah, like I was saying, Ross, I think people, a lot of the time, people don't really know what we do as migration agents and lawyers, and they think we're sitting down on the computer just looking at a guide and a checklist and filling out a form, and that's it. Like, I don't know, spending maybe 20 minutes doing that, and there is absolutely a lot more that we have to go through. Legislation that we have to analyze, we have to study the case. And in saying that, Ross, I want to ask you, like, what do we actually do?
That's a really good question. And do you know what? I've actually had a client, well, several clients ask me, what is it that you're going to do for, X amount of dollars? Well, you're giving away your intellectual property. I think that's what it comes down to. So what we get paid for is to provide advice, to provide strategy, and that it involves using intellectual property. So the forms are available to download. There's a checklist on Home Affairs website, which is fairly generic, but what we get paid to do is to use our experience and to be able to navigate through that complex system that is our immigration. We have over 90 visa subclasses, so on face value it appears that there's a lot of options, but really when you narrow it down, it's about understanding which option's better, whether there's any risk involved, and being able to identify those high-risk applications and navigate through them. And that's what we get paid for. It's not just filling out a form and lodging it with the Department of Home Affairs.
That's right.
Well, that was a really good question, Juan. I've got a question for you. So, well, we've got misconceptions. So, what do we actually do? Why didn't you walk me through your day?
Yeah, look, we may have complex cases in which, for example, I would have to go into legend, which is the source of our legislation, or the legislation for migration, and have a look on how this person, for example, will fit or will meet the specific criteria according to their circumstance. Not everyone's circumstances is the same.
Never.
A client may come and say, yeah, I've been working for this employer, I have this amount of experience, but they may have, for example, problems with the police, or like some records in the police check. And then I will have to have a look how this will impact their application. What happened in their home country? Is there something else we need to know about? So I'll have to go into these specific pieces of legislation and make sure that there is not going to be any problem, or what actions I will have to anticipate that needs to be taken, like writing a submission, so we ensure like a seamless application.
Yeah, and also I'm assuming there's a lot of statutory deadlines as well, and you know, these things normally can't be extended. So say, for example, ensuring that you lodge a correct AAT application within, whether it's a visa cancellation, so 9 days, or if it's an application for review, 21 days. You know, if you get the form incorrect, if you lodge it on the wrong day, then your immigration journey could be finished.
Absolutely, Ross, and that makes me think of so many examples in deadlines. Like, let's say for a 4A5 visa, for example, people have a 6 months period in which they can apply before they cannot. I mean, sounds a bit obvious, but there have been people that forget.
So many times,
and then they
yeah.
lodge the application and it comes back invalid because they missed the chance, you know. So dates are really important. Calculating how long a person has working, has been studying, etc., are vital to ensure either the application will be valid or granted.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also, look, we do also try to educate our clients, I would say, because there is a lot of research. I use research in inverted commas that's available on the internet, or maybe your research source is your friend or family member that told you this is what I've done. So we just want to make sure that we remove that noise and tell our clients or advise our clients to follow a particular pathway. Now, Juan, I know this earlier this morning, prior to filming, we spoke about how we're going to do this segment, and we spoke about a number of examples that come up when it comes to people doing applications themselves. But is there a specific example that you wanted to mention where someone has done an application themselves and it may not have necessarily turned out the way that they would have hoped for it to be?
Yeah, Ross, I can think actually of many examples, but this in particular comes to my mind. This applicant for a 4A5 visa, they made an application themselves because it can be a fairly straightforward application.
Yeah.
However, a little mistake can turn out to be a very costly mistake, both like financially and time-wise. So in this particular case, the person applied under the wrong stream.
Yes.
And now, as we know, the postgraduate work stream requires you to have a bachelor's degree or higher in order to be able to apply. Now, if you have a lower degree or a lower qualification, that obviously your visa will come back refused. And this is the case of this client. Like they chose the wrong stream, and actually the department didn't make the application invalid. They actually refused the application. And it was quite I don't want to say funny, because obviously it was a very unfortunate situation for our client, but it was interesting to see how we had advised this person before, and they disappeared, and they came back a couple of months later. Hey, we're in this situation now. We have to go to the AAT.
Yeah.
And obviously that was very costly. And I don't know if you remember us, but they needed to depart the country, apply from offshore, come back, and obviously we needed to guide them through this extra process that was not necessary.
Exactly.
And you know, this is just a small example of how our assistance may come very handy.
Yeah.
And this is a very simple example. Now there are plenty more complicated examples. You know, whole families have to go overseas.
Yeah.
Whole families are facing like a refusal, being Section 48 barred, and then
re-entry ban as well.
Re-entry bans, you know. And how about you, Ross? Is there any other example that you
Oh,
can tell
look,
me?
there's been plenty of examples, and I think again, just going to the review, I think what happens, and this is sort of the feedback that I get from clients, they do spend a lot of money on a visa application or particular process, and then when that doesn't work out, it's just that automatic thought, well, maybe I'll do this one myself because I've already spent a lot of money. And what tends to happen is the matter goes to the AAT. It might not be presented in a way that it should have been. So for example, specific documents are missing. I've had people who've missed out on a deadline, so the AAT didn't have jurisdiction to review it, or there was an actual case, as in there was merits to the case, but there was no supporting evidence, and it's just really unfortunate because then the AAT might affirm the decision and you may not necessarily have a jurisdictional error, and you're faced with that difficult position, like you said earlier, having to depart the country. So what can end up happening is, and it's not always, you know, sometimes it is possible to do the application yourself, but what can end up happening is that you end up paying more and you end up departing the country, and it's just it is really unfortunate. So I think the current visa system just has very little room for error, and unless you specialize in these particular visa applications, it can be a little bit difficult. I always say I don't do my own accounting because I'm not an accountant, and I hate maths, you know me, so I wouldn't do my own visa application.
No, 100% Ross, and just on an end note, Liz, it is very important to know or have in mind that we can always assist in gathering the right documentation to prove that you're actually eligible, especially for visas like, for example, global talent.
Yes.
Like there is a lot of things to take into account, and being able to have that guidance on how to what documents to provide, it is vital, and yeah, we would always recommend to use the experts.
Yeah, exactly, and making sure that you use someone who's certified to give advice. So Omara website lists all the agents who are registered, so it is important that you double check that the person that you're using is a registered migration agent. If the person says that they are an immigration lawyer, you can check the register, the local register for the Law Society. So each state would have their own register. So it is best to just double check to ensure that you are receiving lawful immigration advice, because on that note as well, Juan, we did have a number of clients who come to us as a result of receiving unlawful immigration advice, and those are really difficult to fix.
That's right, Ross. That especially that last case we had, very unfortunate, you know, that this person got caught on using the wrong avenues. So yeah, absolutely, it's always good to check that you're in the right hands.
Yeah, just a bit of due diligence, and then you know, you don't need to make your immigration journey as stressful. It can be quite seamless. Now, Juan, we always like to have a bit of fun in our podcast, so today I thought, why don't we play a game where we can name as many visas in the short amount of time that we've got. So I'll nominate a time, then you can go higher, and then I'll do the same, and whoever opts out, it goes back to you in order to fulfill the duty. Alright, so the first game is how many visas you can name in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start off low. I'll go with 20.
20. Okay, maybe 22.
23.
25.
27.
Okay, 30.
I'm out. All yours.
Okay. Contributor parent visa. Okay, we're gonna say numbers and we're gonna say names, so whatever it comes out.
Let's do numbers. I think that
Okay.
might be easier. Otherwise, we're gonna be here all day.
401, 494, 190, 109, 400, 820, 801, 100, 309. Like, how many?
And round number 2. Let's do countries in 30 countries. No, wait.
30 seconds. No, 30 countries in 30 seconds. I think I can do that. Yeah.
Okay. I can do 31,
35.
36,
37.
38.
40.
All yours.
Alright, who starts? Okay. Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia, Uruguay, Paraguay, Argentina, Chile, Guyana, French Guiana, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, United States, Canada, Portugal, Spain, France, Germany, Austria, Switzerland.
Time is over.
Now, can I ask, even though you didn't get the 40 countries, have you been to all those?
Oh, good question. Nearly.
There you go. I was actually going to do a map of Europe if I was going to. But, well, I suppose I won by default in that case.
Thank you very much for being with us today. It's been nice to speak about all of these statistics and subjects. Thank you, Ross.
Thank you so much, Juan. Always good to have you on the show. Now, I just want to also make an announcement. We do have our Melbourne CPD coming up, and that's a face-to-face session, so you get to see myself and Evan Bishop on Friday in Melbourne, and the details are below in the link. We hope to see you there, and next week we'll see you back at the same place and same time. Take care.